Fire away. I don't think there's any, cons. I think that, very good team, and, we're in different places than we were in the middle of the season. And the way things are nowadays, when you're into a playoff format, the best teams in the country are going to be, in the playoffs. So I think you're going to see this more and more as we move forward. First off, has an unbelievable tradition, not just in general, but for Ohio State. And, the statue of Archie, the fact that, we're playing a traditional, Ohio State, Oregon, Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup, I think is significant. Anybody who's ever been to the Rose Bowl knows it's one of the best environments there is in college football. And for me, being, my third opportunity to coach in the Rose Bowl, I know how special it is, and I know these guys do as well. We've talked about it before. And, these guys want to play their best football. They understand what's at stake here. They want to fight to keep this team together. And obviously what's at the end of the road. Yeah, just different. Different. We certainly have taken a couple injuries, so that has affected things, but we've adjusted in a lot of areas. We've grown. Every game you play in, you learn from. And, whether you win the game, lose the game, you learn from each week. And the team that learns and continues to adapt, make adjustments, address their issues, continue to enhance their strengths are the teams that are going to be the strongest in the end. And, our focus has been on our execution and our preparation, and it has to continue to be that way. And this is a different trip than the last couple times we've been at a Rose Bowl. This is not a quote-unquote bowl game. This is a playoff game. So it's not about events. It's not about anything other than coming in here, practicing, and preparing to play our best at game time. This team is resilient. They're resilient. It's a mature group. When you get around our players, it doesn't take too long for you to realize the type of guys that we have on this team. And there's a lot of pride there, a lot of resilience. And I think our culture is as strong as it's ever been, and the type of young men, or most of them are men now, in our program. And, they know when the season started that, we would be in this situation. And so we've been preparing all along to be in this situation. There were things that have come up this year that we didn't prepare for sure. Things that we did prepare for. But we knew there was going to be ups and downs along the way. And our foundation that we built in the off season, during the season, during practice, August, September, as time went on, was going to get tested somewhere along the line. And I gave our guys the analogy of some of those houses that go through storms, and the houses that have the strong foundations, when the storm clears, are still there. Our team's still here. We're still fighting. And ultimately, we have an opportunity to go play a team that, right now is ranked the number one team in the country, and an opportunity to go win a national championship at the end of the road. So that's what our focus has been on. I'm proud of our team and how they've responded to adversity this season, but we're certainly not done yet. And, these guys right here are fighting to stick together for another week. You live to see another week, and that's been the mentality to our guys. And I feel like we're focused right now, and we have to continue to do that all the way up to game time. Even though we're at a quote-unquote bowl site, this is not a bowl game. This is a playoff game, and our focus has to continue to be on this game and our execution. When the ball foot hits the ball. Every great competitor does that. You remember the ones that didn't go well, and the ones that are good, you kind of move on from, and that's what's expected of you. So I think anytime, you come away from a game like that, you learn from it and you grow from it. And, great competitors, it kind of hangs in the back of their mind because, they want to make sure that they grow from it. And he's an example of that, but he's not the only one on our team. And, I think that is certainly, helped in the preparation and the focus this week. knowing that now we have an opportunity to go play Oregon again. Yeah, this has been a little different for us. Typically, the quarterbacks that come into Ohio State, we take a lot of pride in being able to develop them over their time while they're here. And, everybody who comes into the program goes on a different journey and a different path along the way. But it's something, at all positions we take pride in developing at all positions. But quarterback is, one particular that is, close to me and something that, I take a lot of pride in, even still as the head coach. And so in this situation with Will coming in, we saw that he was a winner. We saw that he was a leader. We saw him and what he did at Kansas State, the success that he had. And we felt like with our surrounding cast and with our offense and the way that we do things that, this would be a really good match for him and for us. And I think Will's been great for Ohio State, but I also think Ohio State's been great for Will. And I still don't think he's played his best game yet. I think he's, excited to continue to show, his best play here into the playoffs. And ultimately, his leadership is what's going to help us win this game. And he knows that. And I'm proud of who he is as a person, his leadership to get to this point. And I'm excited to see him play here on Wednesday. I go back to our players because that's, to me, what's the most important thing here in the team in general. It's not just one person. It's all of us together. And, when you have great moments, you got to make sure you appreciate everybody that's doing all the hard work. And, when things don't go well, we all have to take ownership of it. And that's part of the job. And I understand that. And, I take ultimate responsibility for everything that goes on in the program. But I think for our guys to understand that life is about resilience, and you're ultimately defined by how you handle adversity in your life, and that things are going to be difficult along the way, but how you respond is critically important. And so that continues to this point. And our guys have to, continue to stay focused and disciplined. Now that we're into December, in the middle of December, past Christmas, and that's all part of the journey for them to understand that the team who continue to stay focused and be disciplined and execute at a high level late in the season is the team that's going to win. And here we are against a great opponent. We're going to have to be at our best. But I think along the way, we learned about ourselves. It's a resilient group. It's a team that wants to stick together. And it's a team that wants to stay together. And so that's it. And I'm proud of where our guys are at right now and excited to see them play Wednesday. I mean, the focus right now has been on this team and our guys, but I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges right now. The way that the structure is being set up with the portal, with signing day, is that you still have to look forward to next year and make sure you're planning accordingly. And so, for all of our guys, they're put in a tough spot. Some of them to decide where they want to be next year. How do they fit into the depth chart? I think the majority of our guys understand the culture. They want to compete. I think that's why you come to Ohio State, is to compete. You don't come for guarantees. You can go other places and probably play maybe a little bit more and get guaranteed a spot. This is about competing. If you make it at Ohio State, you can make it anywhere. And that has to be everybody's mentality, and including a quarterback. Yeah, I would just say that we had great preparation going into the game, and we executed at a high level. Now, what goes into that, we can list all the things that go into that, but that's what we have to do again this week. And I think that's the challenge late in the season, is being able to consistently, week after week, execute at a high level in all three phases. And I'd love to tell you again that there's some magic formula that happens, but that's really what it comes down to when you're talking about, playoff football. And we have to be situationally aware in this game. We have to understand time, score, situation. I think it's important to make sure that, our guys are continually locked in, even, coming to a quote-unquote bowl site. It's not a bowl. This is a playoff game. This is a road game for us. There's no events. There's no anything other than getting ready to go play in this game. And that's got to be our focus so that ultimately we all can execute where we need to and do our job. I think when you're this late in the season, there's a combination of both. There's a lot of overage that you have throughout the season that you have ready for teams. You have ready for the first game that you played against somebody that you don't quite get to, but you practiced all year. Then there's also what you've been doing all season that you're counting on your guys to be able to go execute in a very stressful environment. I mean, everything's on the table. So what the guys know well. They'll go back to the level of their training, but there's also going to be change-ups along the way, on both sides of the ball. And so just like any time of the year, you got to adapt once you see something new. I mean, I think first off, Gabriel's playing at a high level. He's now a full year into the system, and you can see there's a comfort level there. I feel like they've certainly found their identity in all three phases and have done a nice job of implementing that and adapting as the season's gone on. And then they've also been very good in special teams, faking punts, trying to find ways to steal possessions throughout the season. And so that's why I keep going back to the fact that we got to be on point in all those areas and understand how they're trying to attack us, because I think as the season's gone on, they've continued to do a good job of playing complementary football, also adding in the special teams part of it, and try to challenge you in different ways and be creative about how they attack you. I think every week our scheme in all three phases has been tweaked just a little bit to not only maximize our players' strengths, but also to not exactly do what we've shown on film and be predictable. I also think that the number of snaps that we've played this year has been down, and that was to make sure that this time of year we were fresh. And that came into the style of play sometimes when we've played depth. And I feel like we do have a team right now that is fresh, that is ready to go play their best football at the end of the season. So I think all those things come into play when you're talking about scheme, when you're talking about physical part of it.
I was going to ask you that. How different is this season compared to last season? Last season is basically a sprint. Get to the final.
That's it.
Now you got 14, 15, 16 games. Early in the year, did that kind of dictate what you were doing, knowing, hey, we got a lot of stuff at the back end also?
Yeah, and I think if you start to plan too far ahead, you lose focus on what's in front of you. And so it's a series of mini sprints along the way. You can't just say it's a marathon, because you got to win the sprint right here and now, or else you're not going to get to where we are at this point. Knowing that along the way there's going to be twists and turns, and certainly we know that more than anybody. But I think as the season's gone on, I think what we've put in place has fit to where we are. Depth. Pace of play on offense, the way that, we've continued to grow in our scheme in all three phases, knowing that, in this time of year, you have to be pulling out, some of your best stuff. So I think, again, all those things come into play. You also have to, make adjustments along the way to some injuries. And I think that has come into play as well. But when you find when guys who are second string, third string have to step up and play, the more they get thrust into those roles, the more they fit into those roles as well. And where when it's for the first time, that's one thing. But after you see Donovan Jackson now move to left tackle, it's not the topic of conversation right now, because he's made that transition and is executing much better than he would for the first week or two when he hadn't played the position before. That's just one example. I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I think it's going to come down to who executes better and plays better. But I grew up watching college football. I also grew up watching NFL football, and I saw a lot of wild card teams use that first win to build momentum and to stay in routine as they went into the next round. And that's kind of been the way that we've looked at it. Well, we have guys on our staff with a lot of diverse backgrounds. Tim Walton has coached for the NFL and has coached in the NFL for I think over 12 years. James Laurinaitis played in the NFL for a long time. Brian Hartline played in the NFL. Certainly Chip was a head coach in the NFL. I know I'm forgetting a few others, but when you look at our staff, there's a lot of diversity there. So, I think it all comes into play when you're talking about this late in the season because it's about ball. That's what it is. I mean, it's about football this time of year, and so the team that has the best plan and can execute it is going to win the game. It came up in conversation, and then when it wasn't right for him at the time based on the situation at UCLA, and then when Bill took the job at Boston College, I checked back in to see if it was real. At that point, it was much more realistic, and we made it happen. So there was always conversation about us coaching together again. Where and how, we didn't know, but we're back together. I think that's part of the process that to me was never that important. I think at the end of the day, it's easy for, people to want to categorize you or put you in a box or say, you're the next this coach or you're this person. At the end of the day, the advice that I was told is be yourself, and that's it. And that's what I've tried to do and focus on our players, focus on our coaches, and focus on our fans. We have some of the best fans in the world, and we work hard, and I work hard to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make them proud. And some days are better than others, but being resilient and being strong through adversity is a big part of who Buckeyes are, just in general. The state of Ohio, our program, our athletic department, our university, and so that's something that I've talked to our team for a long time about, the lessons that come with this game, just because it's become as big as it is, and but it's still a game, and there's still a lot of life lessons that can be learned. And I'm proud of our men. I'm proud of the resilience that they've shown, but we got a lot of football ahead of us, and so there'll be time to be focused on those things down the road. Right now, it's all about the Rose Bowl, all about beating Oregon. I mean, I think every year and every game, you got to treat it like, it's a big game. It's just the way it goes here. And if you don't think it's a big game at Ohio State, I've always said try losing it. So the approach has to be consistent over time. And if you trust your process and you continue to build on the things that are that are going well and your strengths, if you can build for or fix the issues, even though a loss certainly can expose them more than a win. We always know the issues are there, but then as the season goes on, how can you continue to grow and build from those with the goal of playing your best football this time of year? And that's it. And you're counting on that foundation and that process over time resulting in a victory right here late in the season. So that's really been what the focus has been on. It'll continue to be. But I will say, the Rose Bowl is a great venue, and our guys know that, and they're excited to play in this game. The turnaround on these games have been quicker, but I like it. It keeps us in a routine, and I feel like our guys have good energy. They've been focused. They know that the discipline of staying locked in and not being distracted and being able to do the routine things routinely this time of year, fundamentals, technique, you know, doing a great job in walkthroughs, doing a great job in your meetings. All those things are going to add up this late in the season. And typically when you watch a game, in the playoffs, you go back and you say, man, it wasn't anything extraordinary that happened. We just were really, really good at X, Y, and Z in this game. And taking care of the football, as we know, will be big. So I think the discipline of outlasting your opponent is a big part of this. Yeah, I do. Yeah, this is definitely a longer season. And I think, making sure that, our guys understand how they have to take care of their body, their minds, and then, their spirit of getting themselves to go play at a high level on Saturday. Yeah, it's different than it is in high school, and now it's become different in college. But there's a lot of carryover now to the NFL. I believe that. Yeah, just the way that the style of the season is being played out. I mean, it's the same for both teams. I've said this before. I think we're both in different places, but there's certainly a reference point there of where both teams are at, and there's going to be things that will be similar and things that will be different. Yep. Ooh. How much time do we have? Yeah. Now I would say, it really goes down to the process. And you can make the moment too big. You can, think that, one speech can get the guys fired up, but ultimately it comes down to, on a daily basis, being consistent, making sure you have the right people in the right seats, and then constantly just staying on it and trying to be disciplined enough to outlast your opponents and to trust the process on a daily basis and focus more on that than the result. And because ultimately it comes down to our execution and making sure we're putting the right guys in the right spots. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all about these guys and these players, always has been. They deserve all the credit. And, when something doesn't go well, it's my responsibility. And I understand that. And I lean on these guys because they're mature men. And when you get around them and talk to them, you realize that they have a lot of input that's really valuable. And the easy thing to do is just say, no, this is how we're doing it. But the feedback that you get from a guy like Emeka or a guy like Jack Sawyer or Cody Simon, I mean, Lathan Ransom, I mean, these guys, they know what they're talking about. And they love their teammates, and they want to fight to keep this team together. But, I think that there's a lot of lessons that have been learned throughout their career. I'm talking about the seniors, and certainly a lot of lessons this season that they are going to take with them for the rest of their lives. But now is not the time to be focused on that. We're talking about the Rose Bowl. We're talking about beating Oregon. I mean, if you believe in our guys, you believe in our men, you know that they're going to play that way in this game. They know what's at stake. Again, this is a group that's been through a lot. They have, and they know what's at stake here. So we've wanted to get into this position all season. You don't know what twists and turns are going to come, but here we are. With another opportunity to play Oregon. Not that that's all that significant, other than every team that's in the quarterfinals right now is 3 games away from hoisting a trophy. That's what it is. The only way you get to that point, though, is being focused and executing in this game. And I wish I could tell you there's some magic recipe or formula to do that, but it's how well do we prepare we get done with this, we're going to have great meetings, great walkthroughs, great practice, so that we can execute really well, because execution fuels emotion. And I thought we executed well in that game. We started out with some emotion, but once you see us start executing, you hit a long one to Travion, you hit the one to Jeremiah, all of a sudden you just start to see the whole sideline continue to build that emotion, and I think that'll be important in this game as well. Yeah, I think moving forward, we just know that we have to make sure we have a lot of depth at that position, because you can't just go pull somebody in off the street. But I will give Justin credit for the fact that he has had a lot of combinations in there, and he's continued to work with these guys. And I think we've had a good week of practice. We had a big challenge against this front. They do a very good job. They're strong and powerful up front. Stay on the move. Kind of feel like they're moving and twisting and shaking and blitzing on every snap. So we have to adjust to that. But yeah, I just think as we move forward, you always have to make sure we have a lot of depth, because as you get to this late in the season in the NFL, you can sign somebody off of waivers. You can't do that here. And the line is certainly one of those ones that you got to make sure you have a lot of numbers on. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that that's probably exactly right. Yeah. I think there's definitely, when I say a reference point, you know what you're up against because you've done it before. You played against that person before. Sometimes when you're going into a game, there's a little bit of an unknown. Like even last week, when you look at, we were playing Tennessee, okay, how does this match up in the SEC? Because we don't have a lot of like opponents. Here we played them before, so we know what we're getting. I mean, we're very, very excited about playing in this game, and we know that when we get to this point, we're going to be playing against a lot of good opponents. But yeah, to say that our guys aren't excited about having another shot at Oregon, yeah, that wouldn't be accurate. We're very excited about that, and that anytime you come up short like we did, it stings for a while, and you want another opportunity to go to win that game, and so that's what our focus is. I feel like playing in the first round allows us to stay in a routine, but ultimately nothing about the game last week or the game 2 weeks ago really has much to do with this game right here. This is its own game, and how we execute, how we play in this game will be ultimately how the game finishes. And so while we'll use those games as, again, reference points or, opportunity to learn from those, we'll do that. But we know that this game is its own individual game that we're going to have to play really well in, take care of the football, and execute at a high level. They have very good players. They have very good coaches. Their quarterback is one of the best in the entire country. I think he's very experienced, gets the ball out of his hand. He's athletic. They have weapons on the outside, running backs running hard, tight end's a good player. So, they have a lot of weapons on offense and certainly do a good job of stressing you out with formations and different tempos. I think on defense, same thing. Very, very talented front. Linebackers are very good. Back end is talented. So when you look across the board, you're looking at some of the best players in the country, and they're very well coached. So we know we have to be at our best in this game. What's that? Well, I think every year, every game you learn, you grow, you build, and you lean on your players, you lean on your staff, you make sure you have the right guys there, and you just pour into them. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's impacted, the entire offense. But that's why, we say it's about the power of the unit, not just an individual player. And certainly the offensive line is the epitome of that. And, we had to make sure that, we've had depth at that position, and we've had to adapt things that we've done along the way. But again, the more those guys step into those roles, the more they grow into the roles, if that makes sense. Sometimes when you're like, oh man, I don't know, he's going to be able to block anybody. And then he gets in there and he kind of finds his rhythm and knows he's going to be held accountable to play at a certain level. And I think you're seeing that with some of those guys. Yeah, and I think that, quite honestly, Seth helped with that. And they've continued to build off of that. And it wasn't just the mentality as it was, understanding, how important technique is and just little details of how they're preparing in the game and the communication. But there's also a mindset there. And like you said, I think, we've shown to play with that this season. Yeah. Yeah, can't say enough about his unselfishness, but it's also, I think, going to pay off for him big time, because I think he's become a very good tackle. And now I think he's shown that he can play in the NFL at both positions, which is only increasing his value. But what a great example to all the young players of somebody who took a situation where he came back to be an All-American guard and be the first guard taken in the draft, and then midway through the season has to move the tackle, embraces it, but you're seeing him play his best football. Yep. Yeah, I've said it before how important that is, and there's a lot of situations that'll play into this game. Certainly the turnovers, explosive plays, winning first down, third down, red zone, all those things will come into play. But as we all know, rushing yards are critically important to controlling the game. Now, we'll always look to strike a balance, but you got to be able to run the football and you got to be able to stop the run. Well, he's very proud and pushes his players very, very hard. He's a tough guy, and takes pride in the fact that his guys play with a mentality and a physicality and a toughness. And he does know that program very well, and I know he wants to win this game in a big way. Yeah, I think they've had a great, week and a half of preparation here. They're excited. They go against some of the best receivers in the world here at Ohio State every day in practice. So I know they're excited to get back on the field and compete against those guys. Yeah, I think that's a great conversation for after the season, but I also think the way that we look things are very, very different. But I do think, your team GPA and those things should all still be something that is talked about, because, a lot of these guys are going to go on to the NFL, but a lot of these guys are going to go on to be businessmen and, leaders in society and their communities. And so getting their degree is still going to be as important as anything. And we can't lose that in this whole process. So I do think the APR is going to be hard to track as, the transfers continue to happen from school to school, though. Yeah, I think every game is different, and you don't know until you get into the game what that's going to be. Usually that's what the first half's all about. And then you get into halftime and you kind of come up for air. You've got to figure out, we've been in games where the first half has been kind of chaotic and hectic, but ultimately at halftime you're either going to be winning, losing, or tied. But you use that first half as a barometer of what kind of game that you're in and try to make the best adjustments you can into the second half. Yeah, but at halftime, we were only up by 11 points. I mean, as much as you felt early in the game that we had momentum, a huge part of that game was the beginning of the second half. We got that 3-and-out. We went back down and scored, and so you have to continue to play for 4 quarters. Certainly, you could set the tone for the game early in the game, and we want to make sure we do that. But we have to continue to play for 4 quarters because we know that they're explosive on offense, and so this is going to go 4 quarters. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you build confidence? You build confidence by actually doing it on the field, and I think that's what it comes down to. Every day is an opportunity to prove to your coaches, to your teammates that you can do your job, and that's how you build confidence. There's real confidence and fake confidence. Fake confidence is, jumping up and down before the game or talking trash. Like, that has nothing to do with the fact that, what have you done up until that point to prepare to execute in that moment? And he's continued to do that in practice, and so you're seeing it now in a game. It fuels your fire for sure. And I think any great competitor would say that. It fuels your fire. And we're focused on the next game and what's going on right here in the Rose Bowl. That's it. But, you certainly use the positives as an opportunity to build your confidence, but use your setbacks as an opportunity to fuel your emotion and fuel your drive, and then obviously learn from them. It's a mindset, but you lean on your players, you lean on the staff that's around you, and you stay strong, and you understand that this is a process, and you keep your eyes on the prize at the end of the season. Emeka is a tremendous leader. He's a tremendous young man. He's very thoughtful. I'm sure anybody who's interviewed him walks away extremely impressed with who he is. Emeka is going to have a great career in the NFL. He's had a great career at Ohio State. But, Emeka can pretty much do whatever he wants to do. This is another guy who just does everything right. We have several guys in our program who are like just like that. And I can't say enough about who he is as a person, but also as a player. And I know he's excited to get back on the field and play against these guys here. Yeah, we love having former players around because these guys understand what it means, to wear a Buckeye uniform, and so it's good to have some guys who have been through that before in the program, and I appreciate how he's been around the program this year and some of the messaging he's provided to our players, and maybe even in some tough spots and adverse moments, he's been strong in there, and he's been great to be around our guys. He's got a certain mindset and toughness about him of somebody who's overcome a lot of adversity in his life and is stronger because of it. And I think he's great to have around the team and has been this season. I had heard about some of the work that he had done at UConn basketball, and said, it's probably time for me to reach out and have a conversation. And the conversation was as impressive a conversation I've had in a while about his mindset. And then it continued to grow from there. We started bringing him around practice, and you've seen him at games, and he's here with us this weekend. So it's great to have him around and around our guys. And again, I can't say enough about somebody who's been in some adverse situations in his life, but have overcome them and made them positive. And I think our guys have a lot of respect for that, and so do I. Yeah. I think wherever he is, he's going to get, garner some attention. And then that has an effect on the entire play and the entire game. So, I think it's easy when you just put him at one position to know where he is and then game plan around that. I think when you can move him around, it certainly helps. But ultimately, it comes down to the execution of the plays. There's no magical things that are going to happen. We got to execute the plays. But I do think mixing him, in terms of his alignments, at least makes the defense work a little more. Well, I think the thing that's hard to replicate is his size and his speed. There's a lot of things about him that, are special. But, I say all the time, you can't replicate how big and strong he is and then how fast he is when he's running. And I think you've seen that on some of those things that you're talking about. So, but again, when you're talking about him in terms of his ability to sustain throughout a season for a young player has been significant. Yeah. Well, in the 3-safety system, Jim is incorporated. I think, Tim Walton and Matt have done a great job this season of having versatility and disguising looks. And so, the number one thing you got to do is you got to get lined up against this offense. They do a great job of changing up tempo, so we got to get aligned. But I think when you have 3 safeties, you have the ability to mix up the looks. And when you're talking about Lathan, Caleb, and Jordan, they're similar in what they can do, and that allows our defensive guys to do different things to disguise different coverages. Yeah. Well, it is, and I think when you're playing at one speed all the time, the defense gets you into a rhythm, and I think what Oregon's done a nice job of is change those tempos. I think you see us do that as well. And what are you doing? You're just trying to make them uncomfortable on the other side of the ball, and I think they've done that as good as anybody this year. So the change-up of tempo and the change-up of formations, creates the most challenge for our defense. So we got to do a great job pre-snap. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and then some. Yeah, I mean, we always knew he was special, but what I didn't appreciate, at least until he really got here, was the maturity, physical maturity, and then the mental maturity. Practices really hard every day. I mean, we have to pull him back sometimes. But then again, physically, how mature he is for a young player. You see a lot of young freshmen come in that don't look like that. And so you add that on top of the skill set that he has. I think that's what makes him special as a freshman. Okay, yep, no problem.